Welcome back to Raw, the podcast. I'm your host, Allie, founder of The Cheeky Clean, a wellness brand empowering conscious consuming. Today, we're joined by guest Sarah Syed, and we are starting with a quote, a short but very powerful piece of wisdom from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras 1.2. Yoga is the stilling of the fluctuations of the mind. This foundational definition reminds us that yoga's true aim is mental and spiritual discipline, not physical performance. When I enrolled in yoga teacher training earlier this year, I had no goal to teach. For those who have been following the journey for a little while now, earlier in 2024, I started my spiritual awakening. After a meditation retreat, I quit substances, jobs, relationships no longer serving, and began focusing on my inner work that my heart was deeply craving. A roller coaster that isn't always pretty, but as my teacher and our guest always says, spirituality isn't sexy, it's a commitment to growing. The Studio Cleveland's YTT program came to my attention, and I felt the pull inside of me. Yoga has always been a practice I've continued to come back to over my years in grief and healing, first finding it while living in California after my mom's passing. Since have been a consistent part of my routine, but after the meditation retreat, I found that certain teachers and classes were only working for me, and I started to have to get really specific in order to fuel my journey, becoming less focused on the workout and more intrigued by the wisdom it was providing. Prior to YTT, I wasn't familiar with Sarah or her studios in Cleveland, but reviewing her bio greatly impressed me, and I knew learning from her would be a great honor. What I learned in Sarah's yoga and meditation school was beyond my expectations. It ignited not only my desire to deepen my spiritual evolution personally, but to share this wisdom collectively. Consciousness begins only when we become aligned and we can find true health, happiness, and peace. Prior to Sarah, all of my teachers on my path have always been older than me. The wisdom and experience Sarah carries at her age is inspiring and relatable as I ventured on my continued path to healing. Her open heart and personal journey I am honored to share today with our Cheeky community. Despite being 8 or maybe 9
Maybe 9.
months pregnant, Sarah's here today to share her story of why yoga is more than just poses and the purpose behind the light she is spreading in our community. And with that, Sarah Syed, welcome to Raw, the podcast.
Hi, thanks, Allie. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh, thanks for being here. So good to see you post-graduation.
Yes.
Yes.
And we have dinner this Sunday.
Yes, I can't wait.
Yeah.
It's so wild, like going through that process with everyone. You know, we start as strangers, and by the end of it, it's like a little family. I was so sad leaving on our last day. I'm like, oh, I'm so glad we're getting together.
Yeah, we had already planned something. Get it all back.
It's funny because actually on the first day, so as I was saying in the intro, I do a lot of personal spiritual work and personal growth work. And I had went on a meditation retreat and, you know, really been studying things on my own. And I was worried that maybe a YTT that I went through might be a little amateur for me from the philosophical standpoint or even the meditation side of things. And I remember our first day, first off, reading what the teacher training was about. I could just sense your no-nonsense attitude in it, which I loved. It's like, no makeup. We're not here to impress each other. We're coming and we're here to do the work. And I just could sense this real discipline, but also authentic approach that you took to the true tradition of yoga. And on day one, I mean, we had very few pleasantries, and you're like, all right, we're meditating for an hour in silence. This girl is the real deal. I love it. But I'm sure for a lot of people who are like, I'm just going to do YTT, that's intense. An hour sitting in silence is intense.
Most people wouldn't even try.
It's really hard. And then shortly after that, on our first day, you had us break into groups of 3 with strangers and tell our entire life stories. It was like, oh my God.
We're going in.
We're going in. I love you. This is going to be quite the journey. And then, surprise number 3, Sarah's like, oh, I'm pregnant.
Yeah.
And you could barely tell. We started in January, and so it was so cool to see, I think, the evolution of us grow as yogis, grow together as friends and family, but then also see your evolution growing in size throughout the process. How, I mean, inside, were you ever struggling? Because you showed up every single week like leading on point. You never let it, at least from the outside, be something that slowed you down. Of course, you had to chill out on the poses and whatnot, but I mean, were you freaked out by doing a YTT while pregnant?
I think leading up to it, I was a little nervous.
Yeah.
Just how you all would take it.
Mhm.
No, I mean, it honestly, because I have so much help, like Jeff Knox can come do the poses, and I have other people who are more physically capable to do the
Yeah.
postures. But as I talked about a lot in the YTT, it's not about the postures. Yoga is not about the postures. So I use it as an opportunity to kind of demonstrate that.
Yeah,
Practice what I preach.
absolutely. It is not about the postures. So, how did you first come to finding yoga?
Definitely by chance,
Yeah.
definitely not. I didn't look for it.
Yeah.
I took college classes in high school. So I went to Tri-C, local community college. You can get like college credits.
Uh-huh.
And at the time, I was struggling a lot with mental health issues,
Uh-huh.
a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression.
Uh-huh.
Like any other teenager. I was probably like 17, 18, 33, almost 34 now. And I needed a class. I needed a gym class at Tri-C. So the one I wanted was belly dancing. It was occupied. It was full. I couldn't take belly dancing.
That's
So
so funny.
my options were like strength training, running, or yoga.
Mhm.
And I didn't know what yoga was. But I'm like, I'm not doing running. And I'm not doing strength training.
Totally.
I'll do the yoga.
Guess yoga it is. That's so funny.
Yeah, and I felt like a fish out of water, but I had a really cool yoga teacher, and I was always stoned to class, always hung over. I was not like your typical yogi
Mhm.
who knows what they're doing. I was very much just taking it for college credit.
Mm.
So I'd show up pretty baked, and the teacher was cool though. Like she would talk about her trips to India, how there's no power in India. She'd go to India and like the power would be out for 3 days.
Oh my God.
I'm like, what is this? Like, what? I don't understand
Yeah.
anything. This is so
Yeah.
different.
Yeah.
The class really, that wasn't even the start. So then something else she said that was interesting to my 17-year-old self, and this is a little bit like maybe PG-13.
You can be rated R here in
It's a
Raw.
little rated
Yeah.
R.
Uh-huh.
She started talking about orgasms and like how orgasms are spiritual. So when you're 16, 17, 18 years old, I mean, your hormones are
I'm
crazy.
like, I want a spiritual orgasm.
Yeah, I'm like, what is this yoga? What is this spiritual orgasms? And this is before Instagram existed, before I had, maybe I just got a Facebook, but now you can find anything on the internet. Back then, I mean, I'm Googling, I go home and I try to Google spiritual orgasms and find out more about it and couldn't find anything on it. But it intrigued me. It intrigued me enough to like not just be like right off yoga.
Yeah.
So I think yoga meets you where you're at.
Mhm.
But I continued my drinking and drugs and destructive behaviors for about maybe 3 more years.
Mhm.
And yoga, it was just like a backside thing. It wasn't really in the forefront of my mind. But when I did hit a rock bottom at one point, and I was like, okay, I really stopped drinking. I really got clean and sober. I knew I had to replace all the time I spent drinking and doing drugs.
What was the rock bottom?
Ironically, it was a long, steady rock bottom.
Yeah.
Of just, incident after incident,
Yeah.
chaos after chaos,
Yeah.
like police involvement. There wasn't like,
It just got to a point where you're like, this is not working.
yeah, I found myself crying on the bathroom floor naked, and my first boyfriend and I lived in a condo together, just begging God, a God that I didn't know anything about, didn't really ever connect with. That's like how desperate I was. I'm like,
Mhm.
I don't know how to make my life better. I
Yeah.
just kept trying to quit drinking and stop doing the destructive behaviors for at least like a year or two, and I couldn't. My use would result in like blackouts, arrest, orderly conducts, fights. Like
Yeah.
it's not a pretty sight, and I couldn't stop it. I had no control over myself. Yeah, I got, prayed to a God I didn't even really believe in, and then things got worse. I think it was my second underage consumption ticket, actually
Mhm.
here in North Royalton, and I'm like, crap, like. I get a third. I don't think I'll ever be able to get a job. I was like, I don't know, something clicked.
Yeah.
I'm like, I really need to like clean my act up.
Totally.
Yeah, so when I did, someone told me you need a hobby. Like, you can't just get sober. Like, you need to fill that time. So I'm like, I guess I'll try this yoga thing again. And then I started going like 6 days a week. Like, you go from one extreme to the other. And then
Yeah.
just found myself crying in Shavasana. And it was very healing. It was like
Yeah.
I had never processed emotion before in my
Mhm.
whole 20 years.
Mhm.
So it's
Mhm.
really, I loved it.
Wow. And so that started the whole journey for you, and you at what point went to YTT yourself?
A few years after that. So once I was doing a lot of yoga asana
Yeah.
in a studio called Yoga 101 in Berea, which is
Uh-huh.
now closed. And then I actually found a rose. I'm wearing a citrine right now, but at South Park Mall, found a rose quartz. In the rose quartz, it said like, "will heal a broken heart." And I
Mm-hmm.
had felt I was suffering with a
Mm-hmm.
broken heart. So I'm like, okay, I'll get this rose quartz. I have no idea what a crystal is. And this is like, again, almost 15 years ago. And then that led me down another rabbit hole of research. I'm like, well, what's rose quartz? Which led me to the study of chakras, which
Yeah.
no one, I didn't, they don't talk about that in a
No.
60-minute asana.
Mm.
Now I'm looking up the heart chakra. And then I just start doing this 6 months of introspection and like cut off all my friends. Just like really just did yoga and chakra meditations alone for like 6 solid months with the intention to get to the root cause.
Mhm.
Like, why am I this way? Why do I want to drink? Why do I want to numb myself? What am I running from?
Mhm.
And I just wouldn't stop till I figured it out.
Yeah.
Just kept practicing for a few years. And then in 2014, went to Costa Rica and did my first yoga teacher training.
Wow, that's so cool. The power of yoga, it is so spiritual. And the Western world has gotten a little bit away from that space and peace that the practice does bring. There are so many, really intense classes, big playlists. Like, there aren't, sometimes there's not even enough time in the class to be in Shavasana and feel that energy, that peace that we're there for, which is really coming back inside yourself. I had a kind of similar experience when I first started going to yoga. I really didn't know what yoga to go to, and I just happened to go to a studio that was all restorative, and it was like me and a lot of old people. And because it was so slow, it really forced me to like be in my body in a time when I was dealing with a lot of grief, and it was such a healing hour every single hour that I would go there. And sometimes that would be the only hour that I actually would slow my brain down. I would overwork a lot to kind of like take myself away mentally from what I needed to deal with emotionally. And yoga just forced me to kind of be with it. And then obviously meditation takes it to a whole nother level.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But it's strange. So I went to Strongsville too.
That's wild.
It's
I don't know
wild.
if I knew that.
I know. I'm a couple years older than you. So I graduated in '07.
Okay, that was a
Yeah.
fun class.
Yeah.
I partied with your class.
So I lost both my parents. So moving back I wanted to like get the heck out of Cleveland. When I got to California, I was like, holy shit, everyone out here is so much more in tune with a healthier way of living. And I don't know if it's because it's a stereotypical on appearances or the regulations are different, but the access to health and the amount of people that are actually focusing on their health, cleaner living, cleaner eating, moving their bodies, yoga, spirituality is so much more the norm. Here, I always felt like I had this desire in me for something higher as it related to spirituality, but I didn't really identify with the like structure of the Catholic religion that I was raised in. So I always kind of felt this like fish out of water vibe. And then in California, I'm like, oh my gosh, like these are my people, you know? So when I relocated back against my will with my corporate job, and now I could have the opportunity to live anywhere that I'm not there, I'm so passionate about being in Cleveland, especially since starting the Cheeky Clean, because I do feel like people here need the resources. They're not as in your face and on every street corner. And there are studios, people, healers in this area. It's just not always as easy to find it. And I think it started with this desire to want to help people like my parents who were getting sick. Cleveland Clinic's here. It's like a hub for sickness. But the longer I've been here and the more I've like really thought about it, it's wild because our high school was so big. I mean, I graduated with like 700 kids, I think.
Yeah,
And I mean,
it's a huge.
I don't know if it's the same with your grade, but the amount of like friends that I've had that are no longer here,
I knew you were gonna say that. Yeah, same. The drugs were rampant.
it's crazy because we grew up in like
Very nice.
nice, like middle class type place, but it's almost like, yeah, at a very young age, we didn't really have resources to anything besides just partying.
Our
And
parents were working. I think that
yeah,
afford life in Strongsville. I know mine
yeah,
were working a lot.
same.
It sounds like yours worked a
Yeah,
lot, and kids were kind of left to their own, figure it out. And because we're middle class, maybe a little bit more access to money, which was all used on, in my opinion, in my experience, drugs,
Yeah.
alcohol,
Yeah.
the party life, which seemed cool at the time. But like you said, a lot of friends have passed.
It's a really crazy amount. And I still have friends that are struggling with addiction issues. And it's, a big town, but a small town. And this is kind of like morbid, but it's just like my experience. And I don't mind talking about it. But where my parents are buried in Strongsville Cemetery, I mean, there's people from our high school that are buried there. And it just kind of like shook me awake to be like, I just want to share more about healing and healthier ways of living because people here really need it. And it's easier to get a prescription for prescription drugs than it is to learn how to meditate.
Oh, yeah.
Which is wild.
There's not even small business in Strongsville.
No.
It's definitely the rat race.
Yeah.
In Strong. I don't know what causes it, but you're right. There's a need. That's why I've stayed in Cleveland. I too have tried to leave Cleveland many times.
Yeah.
And I always come back, and I'm like, the work has to happen here. You hear the grass is greener where you water it.
Yes.
And Cleveland's dying, and between the poverty and
I
the
know.
drugs and the murder,
I know.
a lot of problems here. So
There is.
I keep being drawn back.
Yeah.
To fix it.
For sure. And I think if like you looked at our upbringing on paper demographic wise, it would seem like a perfect place to grow up, white picket fence. But the amount of people really struggling with demons and mental health issues is astounding. So
it's all masked by consumerism.
It is.
People try to buy their way out of it.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, I can't say enough about how cool it is what you're doing with the studios. And not only did we learn from you throughout our YTT journey, I mean, I met so many teachers that teach at your studios that are such inspirational people. It's like a whole community of healers, and it's not normal yoga classes. There are some that are more like, regular flow asanas, but I've never in my life experienced classes that are more, the only way I can describe it, and you tell me if it's right, but it's like they seem more traditionally rooted. Like Jeff Knox's class, like Bella's class, they're more like hatha yoga style. And it's so much less about the vibe, and it's more about really the medicine. Everything from breath work to the poses to, yeah, I don't know. Like, how did you cultivate that? Did you intentionally do that kind of energy of trying to bring this more Eastern traditional approach, or you just happen to have people who are doing their own work? I mean, how is your studio so different than everyone else's?
I think because I'm different, you say your vibe attracts your tribe. If I was the type of yogi who was, loved Lululemon and just, whatever yoga is in the West, I would have attracted people like that. But being half Indian, my dad's born in India, and having been to India for numerous months, studying like where yoga's from, and just off the bat, yoga was always about healing for me.
Yeah.
It's never about like fitting in or doing postures or how flexible can I get or how big can my butt be. Totally. Because I started before Instagram. I think Instagram really kind of whitewashed. Yeah, I started before I had one. So now, I mean, if I were to start with no knowledge of what yoga is, and I'm on Instagram, I would assume it's about postures. I would assume it's about matching bra and leggings and looking cute. But I've actually been really fortunate to have really good teachers that I've studied from all over the world, and they've led the way for me. Yeah. And then I think through that, when I first bought the studio, which was when? 2018, November. Yeah. So before COVID. So I had it for a solid full year and some months before we had to shut down. Wow. And I had no idea what I was doing in terms of business. I was always a yogi first. Learning the skills of business and entrepreneurship were totally different, totally different brain. But yeah, there were people I've hired throughout the years that weren't a vibe, weren't a match, and slowly, it's all kind of balanced out to where now we're surrounded by people who we all see yoga as like a spiritual practice. Absolutely. Which I think is exactly what makes the studio so unique. And you can feel that the first day that I walked in, I was like, this is such a vibe. It is so much more of a sanctuary than just a room to do yoga in, which is such a blessing. So, in your background, you did go to college. Yeah, I have a master's in education. Wow. Yeah, so and originally I have my bachelor's in psychology. Uh-huh. It's very high functioning drug addict drunk in my teenage years. Could get a 4.0, but could not, not get arrested on a weekend. So it's very all over the place. I had to ground that energy. Yeah, psychology background first with the intention to kind of figure out my own self, what's wrong with me. I was always self-inquisitive, which eventually led to working in the social work fields, which I realized was broken. I mean, if you've ever worked as a caseworker, I worked in mental health first, and I realized a lot of these institutions are just about insurance and billing the insurance, and there's not a lot of real transformation happening. The clients don't get better. It's just really about how much can you bill the insurance.
That's
Literally.
so
And if
awful.
you don't bill enough, you get written up.
That's so awful.
Yeah, that's all it was. So I'm like, I don't want to do this. I have to go back to school. So I went back with the intention to catch them younger, because when you're where I was working, I work with adults.
Yeah.
Like by time you're an adult, it's too late. Like,
Yeah.
maybe if I work with kids and teenagers, I'll have more of a chance to help people, because high school's hard. Teenagers are hard, and I feel like kids in that age need like good role models. So that's why I went back to get my master's in education, but same thing happened. I did my student teaching, and I realized the school system's almost just as bad. It's surrounded by the Common Core, and you have to get like, it's not about teaching the students, it's about making them pass these exams for state funding. And if you don't have enough people passing them, you get paid less, and it was just a lot of politics. And I'm like, well, I don't like this either. So I figured I'll just teach yoga full time, even at like, you don't get paid a lot.
Yeah, it's a selfless.
Yeah. I was like, I'd rather live in a box and teach yoga and be happy than sell my soul. So I had that realization early.
But what's so powerful about that realization is I think when you can truly come to peace with knowing, like you said, like I'll live in a box and I'll practice yoga, is that will make me happy, and you trust in that process, then you're given these opportunities to share that.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing versus when you're unaligned, you can push and force and have all of the material things, but you'll never feel fulfilled because you're not even opening your heart and that space for those opportunities to come in. That's really what I've learned a lot in the last year. So, I mean, at this point, I'm really just like trusting whatever is to come, because it's, you have to sometimes take a big risk.
Big risk yields big rewards, but they should be spiritually aligned.
Yeah.
The term for that is dharma.
Dharma,
Living your
yes.
dharma.
Yes.
So we all have a God-given purpose, we say in the yoga philosophy. And if you walk that path, you will be guided, but it's not an easy path. It's a very trying and testing path, and that's why it's a little easier to take the corporate route or the big box route.
100%. I think people sometimes look at entrepreneurs. I mean, even I did, and I'm like, wow, that must be so nice to do what, just create every day. But the level of like guts that it takes, because once you're in it, it was so comfortable in corporate America. Everything from health insurance to, I mean, all you have to do is show up and do your job, and you're really taken care of. That's the perk. Steady paycheck, like knowing what's going to come in, all of this stuff.
Budget.
You can budget. Even on a day, if you can't give 100, you still are on salary. Whereas when you're an entrepreneur, when you're creating, you really have to have self-discipline to take care of yourself, to make sure that you're balancing your own life in a way that's conducive, and to have a ton of faith in what you're doing is going to work out in the way it's meant to, because it is not comfortable actually at all. It's very uncomfortable.
It's very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You take all your securities away. There's no
Absolutely.
stable income. There's no health care. There's none of that. There's no guidance. There's no one telling you what to do. There's actually people telling you what you're doing is wrong.
100%. Everyone wants to give you advice on what you should be doing. I really learned that. Like, all right, at a certain point, you just have to like trust your gut and your intuition. I feel like you are really tapped into your intuition. How did you get there?
I don't know. I don't know if I was born this way or through practice, maybe. Finding alignment really young. I'm really not sure. I mean, it's definitely a blessing. I knew like you can do things that look good on paper, or you can do things that like make your heart and soul feel fulfilled. I've just always gone that way.
Yeah.
And I've gotten a lot of backlash.
Yeah.
From family, from friends, really close people. I think my connection to God, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he pulled me out of that hole of addiction. AA didn't do it. I don't think I did it. I mean, it was surrendering to God and whatever that means to people. But that from there on out, I'm like, I'm just gonna follow this inner voice. Got me out of this hole that probably should have killed me,
Totally.
and I didn't die, so I kind of had like a renewed opportunity to live.
Yeah.
But I did it.
And you're like, something's looking out for me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I knew just to follow that. It's like a little knowing.
And meditation itself, I had read the benefits, you hear it on podcasts and like so good. I would try to sit there maybe here and there. Before I went to Dr. Joe Dispenza meditation retreat last year, I had never meditated probably longer than 15 minutes. And I went to this 7-day advanced retreat and was doing like 4-hour meditations, and it literally changed my life. And I think people think it's crazy when I say that, but when you actually sit with yourself, and we don't ever take the time to do it. It's almost weird and woo-woo
Well, yeah,
to do it.
if I have a
Exactly.
million things to do, why would I
Yes.
stop doing the things to
Yes.
sit and do nothing? I
Yes.
just can't get past that.
So at what point did your yoga practice, because you had said in our teacher training that, yoga has been transformative for you, but nothing changed your life as much as meditation did. And when you started to really like dive into your meditation practice, when did you shift and start spending more time in the silence?
Yeah, so I was doing the yoga asana for a solid like 10 years before I dove into meditation, which if you follow the 8 limbs makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But I realized, I mean, I was still emotional. I wasn't using drugs. I wasn't numbing with alcohol or pills. But I found myself still going through those cycles of drama.
Yeah.
Difficult relationships, like
Mm-hmm.
insecurities, feeling reactive.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, okay, I've been doing yoga 10 years. Why am I still crying over spilled milk? And
Yeah.
why am I still easily upset? And then I was in Costa Rica once and someone told me about Vipassana. They're like, it was like some guy in a van. Yeah, I'm on my way to a meditation retreat called Vipassana. And I'm like, oh, that sounds so cool. He's like, yeah, you're in silence for 10 days and just meditate for 10 days. I was so intrigued.
Mhm.
And the person I was with at the time was like, I want nothing to do with that. So I'm like, all right. So I kind of put it in the back of my head. And then I read a book by one of my favorite teachers, Kino McGregor. And she talks about her process of getting to where she is. And she did a Vipassana. So in her book, she talked heavily of Vipassana and the benefits. I'm like, there's that thing again.
Yeah.
And so I ended up going in 2017 for the first time.
Which is a 10-day silent retreat.
Yeah, 10 days. It's actually like 12. You arrive.
Mm-hmm.
They call that day 0. And then from 4 a.m. to about 9 p.m. for 10 full days, you meditate. And then you can leave the next day. It's like day 11. So it ends up being like 12 days. Yeah, you meditate 13 hours a day. Every hour you get to take a bathroom break. But it's a total cleansing of all the senses. So there's no music, no talking, no journaling, no reading. Like you're literally, your eyes are closed 13
That
hours.
is so intense.
It is. And
I really don't think a lot of people could do that.
it's hard. I mean, you feel like you're in a insane asylum, but the asylum's in your mind.
Yes.
Because when you open your eyes, everyone's just sitting and meditating. All the drama is in your head.
Wow, what perspective, my gosh. Wow.
I've done that 7 times. Yeah.
Do you think you'll do more?
Well, now that I have a baby coming, I have to wait. But
Like, is it something that you feel like you do on a consistent basis or you get so much out of one?
the first one, no. I feel like I don't know if I came into this life with a lot of karma, a lot of baggage or what, but it took about 7 times for me to go before something real, like before I had a profound experience on the seventh one where I just finally understood what peace was. And it sounds so simple, but I mean, it takes a long time to dig through all the layers to find that inner peace. And I found it. It was June 2023. And then when you find that, you protect it. Anything that doesn't contribute to that peace, you want nothing to do with. But I would definitely do it again. Yeah. I mean, I have a newborn coming. So we'll see, but I did get so much out of that last one. And I find that every time I go to one, my life shifts so dramatically. I've gone through 7 really dramatic shifts since 2017. It shifts a lot. The first one I didn't own the studio. So within a year, I ended up owning a yoga studio. And then the next one, I don't know, ended up being COVID. And then the next one, I got another yoga studio. Like your life shifts a lot, and it's kind of a lot. So now I'm just kind of grounding and still dealing with the shift of the last one.
Never in my life did I think that at the end of this last year I would have left my job. It was not in my plan. Honestly, financially wise, I could have waited another like a year and a half and had some ESOP shares vest. It wasn't some ideal time for me to leave, but I think spending that time with myself, it allowed me to start to tap back into my intuition and release a lot of fear. Fear was a lot of what I was releasing my first one. And I think when you're so caught up in the material outside world, I was getting caught up in like, what should I be doing? Not what is my heart and my soul calling me to do. And I mean, it changed my life completely. But I do still think I'm working through, and like YTT came at a perfect time because it was again reminding me how important it is to get back to that practice and the emotional fluctuations. I can totally relate to that. I'm a very reactive person. I'm Scorpio. I'm like a fiery kind of girl.
Moon in Vedic astrology.
Yes. And I also think when you haven't processed a lot of emotions in your life or know how to, especially heavy ones like grief and other things, it comes out in ways that are explosive. And I mean, it would be like one wrong move from someone, and I was on 100.
Same.
And to see the way that I'm changing that reactive nature is seriously what keeps me coming back to the practice because it is so powerful.
It works. And
Works.
that's when I notice like meditation's like the real deal. Like yoga asana is great. It's awesome. It's great to detox. It's great to detox your body and your mind. But with the 8 limbs, it's really just the beginning of the journey. And when you sit in stillness, especially for extended periods of time, all the stuff, like you said, that we don't process, we don't know how to process, we don't get time to process, comes up. And as long as you can observe and not react to it, it goes away. It's a law of nature.
So cool.
And it works. It 100,000% works. Things that would make me cry for a year, I don't even bat an eye now.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going through a very difficult divorce, and this kind of a thing would bring people to their knees, make people maybe drink or become promiscuous. Like, I don't know, but I feel like I've handled it with a lot of grace because you can just, okay, it's impermanent like everything else, and you just don't react. And so it's giving me strength to like deal with really hard things.
Yeah. So throughout your divorce, which has been what, a couple years, right?
Yeah, we separated since 2023.
Oh my gosh.
So going on 2 full years.
I cannot imagine because I was married for 2 years as well, but because it was so short, we did a dissolution. We called it a peaceful transition. I have actually more respect for my ex post divorce than, I mean, I always respected him, but afterwards, because of the way that we went through the process and how respectful he was of doing it in a peaceful way with me,
That's amazing.
it's amazing. It is like the biggest blessing.
People show themselves.
People show their true selves
in those situations.
But even like without that, it is such a grief, emotional, traumatic experience. And divorce, no matter how big or small or how many years, is really, really hard. And so to have, like, you haven't even almost like gotten to start the true healing of releasing all of that because you're still so in it. Wow. And so you're doing like your meditation is helping you navigate it?
I mean, I would say
Snap.
God first.
Yeah.
And meditation is how I connect with God.
Yeah.
God being like not some grandpa in the sky. There's a lot of religious dogma and religious trauma. So I try to explain it in ways that don't trigger people who have had like bad experiences with Catholicism. And I grew up in a Catholic Muslim background. My dad's Muslim and my mom's Catholic. I mean, this is almost as diverse as it can be. When you know it's right and you know the laws of the universe and such, and karma, you just act on those, and then a lot of patience is required.
Absolutely. Yeah, patience is an understatement for what you're going through, I can imagine. And at what point did you meet your current partner?
So I actually met him a long time ago.
Yeah.
But was not interested in him at all. Came to an outdoor yoga class maybe like 2019 or 2020. And he was just a student. Like I could maybe tell he had a crush on me or something, but that's normal when you have like a female teacher. But I literally was not, and even I'm like, whatever, don't care at all. Yeah. But I'd say like it was March 2024, about a year ago.
Yeah.
I had been separated for almost a year at that point. And he just asked me out to a bowling party. He's like, "Do you want to come to I have a bowling party every year. Do you want to come?" And I'm like, "Why not?" Something clicked where I'm like, I need someone who at least matches those things. So he was like the first guy that I'm like, well, he has a job and an apartment and a car. I guess I'll give him like a shot. Yeah. He at least matches that. And he was just so sweet.
And you guys just built such a connection emotionally.
Yeah, it's really amazing. I mean, we can talk about anything. He
Mm-hmm.
doesn't get mad.
Mm-hmm.
He's never raised his voice at me. He's never called me a name.
Wow.
We've never gotten in a real fight. Yeah, I mean, he feels like the male version of me, someone who's been through a lot,
Yeah.
who's had their own struggles, have used their struggles to become a better person, whereas a lot of people let their struggles make them bitter.
Yeah.
It's just been really cool. It's been really
That's
fun.
so cool. Relationships really are a mirror.
Yeah.
And I think it's a testament to the work that you've done to then attract someone that's as kind and generous. And it just goes to show, look how much work that you've done on yourself, not attracting these reactive, dramatic type relationships now. That's so beautiful.
I ended the cycle, I'm
You
pretty
ended the
sure.
cycle.
Yeah.
That's so badass.
Which the cycle didn't start with me. I mean, my mom was with an abusive husband. Her mom, it's been as far as I can remember.
Yeah.
Like, all
Yeah.
women have been abused physically, mentally, sexually, emotionally. In my probably both lineages, but definitely maternal.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew it'd be a hard battle.
Oftentimes, especially at our age, we don't always realize how much those generational traumas live in us and may not even know of them.
Most people aren't aware, or it's deemed as normal, or
Yes.
it's justified. This behavior is justified. That's what I was doing with my former husband. Well, he's this mean to me because his brother died, or he's this cruel because he's lost his dad. But it came to me like, well, I've been through stuff too, and I'm not this mean.
Yeah.
So I realized it wasn't okay.
It's with all of the chaos in the world in general, but even more right now, it just feels like such a heightened environment of stress, and whether it's political strife or mental health issues. You were saying the education system's broken, and the healthcare system is broken. Like our country is broken right now.
Yeah.
And I think so often people are looking to blame someone or look outside, and it just want to empower people to just start to do the work internally, because that is the way that we can really change the collective environment. By really taking a look at ourselves, if we can become different, if we can react less, if we can lead with more grace and love, like that is such a ripple effect that truly can change the climate of this culture right now, which is so needed.
Yeah, 1,000%.
Yeah, it's a powerful thing.
It is. Things do crumble before they get better. So
Totally.
our country's crumbling in
Yeah.
some ways. And, I mean, you mentioned it in the beginning. Spirituality is not sexy. Healing's not sexy. Our country's definitely not sexy right now. Which means we're going through a collective dark night of the soul.
Yeah,
But
it's so true.
but some of us have already been there.
Mm-hmm.
So we're kind of able to hold space and ground
Mm-hmm.
during this time.
Yeah.
And hopefully be an example for others who are now having to go through that.
Absolutely. So one thing that I really admire about you is your ability to get yourself out of comfortable situations, like from the Vipassana to all of these. I mean, you really do throw yourself into uncomfort in order to grow.
Yeah. I'm kind of an all-in type of girl.
Yeah, and I am, when it comes to studying and researching and learning, I'm very, and even the practice that I do, but I think what I'm really working on now in this part of my spiritual journey is, and I don't know if I came into this world with this, but I do have like attachment issues, and Kabbalah is something I study, and they say like you come into the world with it, and that's almost why I chose my parents. I chose my mom, who left at an early age, because this is my soul baggage that I need to transform in this life. And it's wild because I have been trying to do more things that get me out of my comfort zone. And the more I went through YTT, you have studied in India, many of your yogis that work, that, it's like almost like the real yogis who are on a spiritual level have some sort of exposure to some other cultures.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it a lot. There were different things that were kind of like, that would be really cool. But honestly, the retreats that I've done have always been luxury retreats, where I went up to a really beautiful yoga retreat. It was in a gorgeous resort in Hawaii. We did yoga every day, but it was as comfortable gets, you know? And so, like, I'm at a point in my life where I can only grow so much from comfort. I think getting myself out of my corporate job and those material comforts was step one, but now spiritually, I'm really ready to do something like that. So when Swami came, who was the monk that came to speak to our class, he has such an incredible podcast. So I dove in and started listening to the work of him and his guru. And after I had like been mentioning to people like, yeah, it'd be cool to go to India, when he was there that day, he's like, I'm hosting a spiritual pilgrimage to India this year. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like maybe I should go. And then Rima and I were talking about going, and we're like, if it works, I don't know. So we decide we're gonna go.
Hey.
And then I put my deposit in, and she's like, oh my God, they said it's full. And I'm like, wait, what? I'm not going without you. I can't go without you. And she just like had this like about it at first. She's like, I'm so sad. She's like, but I know this is meant to happen, and I just trust if it's meant for me, I will get on the list. I had full blown convinced myself, like, I'm pulling out. I'm not going. There's 500, whatever. At least it's not the full amount. I'm not going without her. I was almost weirdly relieved because I'm scared to go.
So you are going.
Literally the next day, he was like, I'm in. And I'm like, shit. Yeah. So, but I'm really finding myself, I haven't even told anyone about it. I'm not like screaming it from the rooftops because there is this part of me that's really nervous about it. Really because of this, like, I'm so attached to my dogs. It's so crazy. And I feel like they're like my children. And through all of the things I've lost, I got each one of them after both my parents died. They've been my little worlds. And it's so scary for me to leave them, but I can't continue this. They're not going to live forever either. So I really am wanting to get myself out of my comfort zone and go. And I mean, I'm going.
Well, a lot of it's in the mind. So
Totally.
when I do the silent meditation retreats, they take your phone away. The first thing I think every single time, I have this tendency to catastrophize.
Yes, me too.
That's what
Like worst case scenario.
when they take my phone at the meditation retreat, and like by day 1 or 2, I'm like, okay, I know someone's dead. I know my business is burnt down. Like my mind goes there. It goes to
Yeah, you're a business owner. You have all, yes.
I'm like, something's wrong. My house burned down. My business burnt down.
I feel that.
My mom died.
Literally.
No way to know. And you're like forced to sit with the unknown, which is really scary. And there's no way to verify if people are alive or dead. You just gotta sit there for 10 days, and the clock is moving so slow. You're like, oh, in 9 days I'll get to find out if everything's okay.
Yes.
But then through the process you do surrender, and you have to just accept the way things
are.
Yeah. And same with traveling. Like our mind can go to the worst case scenario, and we have our pets. We love them so much. I have a cat and a dog, so I get it.
Yeah.
Soon a baby, but they'll be there when you get back.
Totally.
And you'll just get so much out of the trip. For sure. You'll get so much out of it.
And it's just so, I know, and I'm just so like craving exposure to this spiritual
It's
culture.
gonna shake you up, and in the best way. The first time I went to India was 2013, and I was just shook. They hardly had Wi-Fi in the whole country. There were no Starbucks yet. Now there are. So they're kind of getting a little gentrified over there.
Yeah.
But at the time, I was just shocked to be like, it was the first country I'd ever visited. To go from U.S. with AC and electricity and toilets and everything that we have here to over there. I mean, it was rough, but I was also very young. I had little world experience. But now, if you have a strong spiritual practice, it's just like a living practice.
Yeah.
Every moment you have to surrender in India.
100%.
Be like open-minded, drop your judgments, drop your preconceived notions.
Yeah.
The practice.
For sure.
Really cool.
Yeah, I've really come to terms with the fact that nothing's holding me back besides myself from going, because I don't have a corporate job right now. Like, it couldn't be better timing.
When you have the call, not everyone feels called to go to India.
Exactly.
There's a lot of yoga teachers that don't feel called to meditate, that don't feel called to go to India to learn more. In my opinion, each place is there's some places on the earth that have more energy. India is definitely one of those places. I'd say Peru too, Costa Rica. There's a lot of places that just have like
a spiritual energy.
Yeah, like high vortex energy. Yeah. Sedona.
Yeah. So it's nice that Rima and I are going together.
That's great.
Yeah,
Like you surrendered on me. Like I was telling Rima, what better person to take you than an Indian person? You're going with like a spiritual guide.
Yes.
It's like one of the most spiritual places on the planet.
Exactly. It will definitely be out of my comfort zone experience.
And it takes months to integrate after.
Yeah.
Just like the Vipassana. So once you go, you'll come back, you'll be like, what happened? And then it'll take months. And then after, like, had a friend who happened to be up in northern India in the Himalayas, and he's like, oh, you should come visit me. And when I say friend, I mean he's like a 60-plus-year-old guy named Samuel.
Oh my
A
God.
musician in
That is
Cleveland.
so cute.
So I went to Varanasi, which, oh my God, my first reaction going to Varanasi was like, I gotta go. I actually went to the bus place to book a ticket to Nepal. I'm like, I gotta get out. This city is nuts. Like, the amount of people, it was just crazy. I was so overstimulated, and I wanted out. And then when push came to shove, I did not get on the bus to Nepal. And I stayed in Varanasi, and it ended up being one of the most spiritual, transformational experiences ever.
Wow.
And that's where people go to die. So Varanasi is up north, and Swami mentioned it. It's also near Sarnath, where I visited, where Buddha taught his classes, which is not too far from where he was enlightened. Excuse me. So the whole region's really, really spiritually endowed. But they believe in India, like, they burn the bodies when people die. They're burnt like in the middle of Times Square type of deal, like just in the middle of the city. Like, you just see this giant bonfire the size of a building.
In Varanasi?
Yeah,
I believe I'm going there.
and yeah, you probably will. And I didn't know. Like, I went there blind. I went there alone. I went there with like no background information to what I got myself into. I remember for 24 hours I just sat. I'm like, holy shit. I was shook. But it just changes you. Spirituality is so much like the good and the bad, like they're equal, like the hard and the easy, the dark and the light. It's integrating all of that and beyond it.
I seem like an extrovert, but I'm like an introvert through and through. Like, I really love being alone. I really am a homebody. Like, I love my space. If I have plans on the weekend, I'm like anxious about it. I just like to be in my own space. You know what I mean? I love connecting with people, and especially like minds, and I'm comfortable in social settings, but just to like recharge my energy, like, I like my space.
I think that goes hand in hand with spiritual practices.
Yeah. So it will be definitely a test, but I'm looking forward to it.
You're gonna do great.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll do great.
So now gonna be a mom soon. That's gotta be such a wild experience to be about to bring life into the world. Are you going to raise your child to be spiritual? Are you going to teach them mindful practice at young age? Have you thought at all about how you're going to instill some different things that maybe you had access to growing up?
Yeah, I mean, I know heavily they follow our actions and they learn from what we do, not what we say. So I can say all the things in the world.
Yeah.
But he'll pick up on what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so, I intend to maintain my asana practice. I intend to maintain my meditation practice with the hopes that he grows up seeing this is normal.
Yeah.
I have a yoga room where I'm living. There's a room with, mats and cushions and statues, deities, and crystals and altars, and he'll grow up thinking this is normal.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And not have to find it in a random part of life.
Yeah,
Something he has exposure to.
And I own yoga studios, so he comes to work with me. He's just gonna know it's normal. Yeah, hopefully.
I mean, Sarah was doing inversion still at like 35 weeks.
I secretly did just do a headstand last week to see if I could still do it, and I can. But he's head down in the pelvis.
That's so wild. Yeah, but that's just the mark of the best teachers, and that's how I felt both at like Dispenza, but with you, it's not like you're like, okay, go meditate, guys, and you're off chilling. You would sit in it with us, That's
so important.
Yeah.
I was hosting meditation trainings for a while, and I still will again at the studio Cleveland. And I mean, you have to practice what you preach.
Yeah.
And I've told the students, if you will teach meditation and you want your students to be still and sit cross-legged, like, you have to do it.
Yeah.
You can't just, do as I say, not what I do. You
Totally.
have to be an example.
Totally. And you're just such a great example of that for us. Truly so inspiring and bringing so much to Cleveland. So the studio's downtown. I'm going to be teaching there starting tomorrow.
Yeah.
Which is so cool.
Good for you.
Me too. And then you have outdoor yoga for everybody. Throughout the week in the summer, all week, there are different outdoor classes that are donation-based offered. So cool, so badass for anyone who's looking to get into yoga. It's so funny when I say I'm a yoga teacher, people are like, oh, I wish I could do yoga, but I'm not flexible. I'm like, that's what it's about.
You know what the response is? You say, that's like saying you're too dirty to take a bath. It just makes no sense.
It makes no sense. And when you realize that the point of yoga is more for the mental peace, the poses don't matter.
They don't matter. It's not performative. when you do the postures, you can open up energy channels, and that helps actually move stagnant energy.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it is a mental practice.
It is, totally. So we learned so much in our YTT, everything from, and that's what I think is so cool about just India and the Eastern practice. I mean, we learned everything from Ayurveda to astrology to physiology, you know, all of these different holistic encompassing parts that is yoga. And I think that's why I wanted to talk about it today, because it is so much more than the poses. It's a way of healing body, mind, and soul, and it's really powerful. Are there any like books or pieces of like, so say someone's like really new to it and they're interested in like learning more about the philosophy of yoga, is there anything that you would recommend?
Philosophy of yoga. I mean, I start with the yamas and niyamas, which
Thinking
is
too.
what I have you all read.
Yeah.
First book. It's the ethics.
I think every human should read that book.
Every human.
Yeah.
Yoga, and that's the thing. Religious dogma against it, but at the end of the day, it's just teaching us to be good people.
Yeah.
And the idea is if you can't live ethically, how will you ascend spiritually?
Yeah.
You know, you can't steal from people, lie and hurt people, and still have a clear conscience.
Totally.
You know, you gotta have good ethics. And yeah, definitely Yamas and Niyamas by Deborah Adele. A non-yogi related book that's spiritual that was really impactful for me was Louise Hay, You Can Heal Your Life. That was the first
I've never read that.
It's a great book. It was my first book that I read that I was like, wow. I think you mentioned it. She talks about how we pick our parents.
Yeah.
We pick our life. We pick our path before we're born.
Wow.
For our soul's evolution. It was the first time I was exposed to that concept, and it brought me peace. Yeah, You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. She also provides like a list of how any physical symptom you have is related to some psycho or mental or spiritual ailment. So let's say, which could become controversial, but I have found it to be true. I'm trying to think of
It's so connected.
like maybe cancer is a result of repressed anger.
100%. I completely believe that fully.
She has like a whole list.
That's so incredible. And Seed of My Soul talks about that too. Seed of the Soul talks about the relationship between spiritual health and physical ailment.
Yes, it's interconnected. And another book is Wheels of Life, and it's a book about the chakras.
Cool. Yeah, the chakras are so interesting. That's another thing that I feel like opened me up a lot and I want to learn more about, because when we did our chakra meditation, I think it was like 2 hours.
Yeah.
It was like longer than anyone even realized. But when we got to the heart, I was really emotional. And I think I found how much I was carrying.
Yeah.
I really started the process during the middle of our YTT of forgiving myself, which has allowed me to forgive others. And it's really powerful work when you start to learn the energy centers and what we're carrying within those energy centers and how to start moving through those blockages.
It's truly what I think got me sober, like in addition to God's grace. I mentioned it in the beginning, like I found the rose quartz for the heart and I started to figure out the why, but I would spend the 2 hours every day for a solid 6 months alone in my room in Strongsville, meditating on my chakras. Like, what's going on in the root chakra? What am I afraid of? What's my family life? How do I feel when I think about these things? And let the emotions arise and work all the way up.
Yeah.
Because we live in a society where it's go, go, go. And I think it's by design.
It's by design.
Because if you're go, go, going, you can't stop, reflect, and heal and find your innate power and strength.
Exactly.
That we all have. But we're so busy with like the politics and the world, the bills. We gotta pay our bills. We gotta work. People get stuck in that. So I really breaking out of the matrix has been like a really big theme in my life. And then once I figured out it's totally possible to help others do that.
It's so freeing. And again, like you're an example of it. I hope to be as well, of just living, embodying such a different version of myself. I hope that people that meet me now versus who I used to be can see such a change in the way that I show up in the world. And I want to empower other people that you really can shift and become a more peaceful, happier person. Yeah.
As someone who would like cry every day, cry for hours at a time, and just so easily get my heart broken, to now you find the strength and resilience.
Totally.
I hardly get upset. It takes a lot to make me upset. And even then, it's momentarily.
It's so beautiful.
But that's available to everyone.
It's available to everyone. So what else do you have coming up that you want to tell the cheekies about? You have a retreat this summer, right?
Yeah. So I'm hosting a Ayurveda yoga and meditation retreat with a really close friend. Her name's Shalpika, and she's
I've met her.
You have?
Yeah. On my birthday, I went to a yoga class and dinner that they hosted.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
She's really
I actually need to go to her and do a full detox.
I've done her Panchakarma cleanse.
Mhm.
I lost 8 pounds. It was amazing.
I need to do that.
But it's all not 20 pounds of fat. I'd say it was like 20 pounds of toxins.
Yeah.
Stuff. It's really, really. She's from India. She's studied in India. She's an Indian woman. She's come here to share her Ayurvedic practice. Very passionate about it.
So knowledgeable.
And then her and I just like hit it off right away. So this is the second time we're hosting a retreat together.
Very
It's
cool.
a beautiful Hope Springs Institute, which
It
is
looks
very
beautiful.
quiet. The phone doesn't work, like you're
Yeah.
in the middle of nowhere.
I
so
love
you
that.
get to disconnect.
Yeah.
And then in April, about 1 year from now, I'm hosting a retreat in Peru.
So cool.
Yeah,
I might have to go.
Peru is amazing. It's my third or fourth time there. It's another spiritual hub. I
Mhm.
mean, the people of Peru are so tapped into Mother Earth. They have so much reverence for nature. It just blows my mind every time.
That's so cool.
It's just so beautiful. Mountains are so powerful. Just like India, it forces you to change.
Absolutely.
It forces you to face ego death.
Yeah. Wow. So cool.
And then I will host another yoga teacher training too in the fall, spring.
This coming fall?
Fall, winter, yeah.
Okay, good to know because people have definitely asked me about it, and I just couldn't recommend it more because even if you're not going to teach, like I said, I really went through it to gain my own personal growth, and I got that and then some. And to think that I'm going to be teaching 3 days a week now just because I want to share this same feeling with the world is so cool. That too.
That's what happened. One of my teachers said it, like, it works when you just can't shut up about it.
Yes.
Everyone needs to know what this works.
It's such a misconception. People just look at it as like a way to work out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's so much more than that. It's so healing. So yeah, Lakewood Yoga Studio and the studio downtown are both yours.
Yes.
And you're such a unique business owner. I've never met anyone like you that's a business owner that is so giving. Through the yoga teacher training, we go to any yoga for free. All your teachers can attend yoga for free. You're so aware of how healing the practice is, and I think that you offer that access to people who are trying to do the work to practice at your studio allows that for everyone.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
There's a fine line between like being a business owner and being a spiritual practitioner.
Yes.
And I never want to go past the line of greed. Like,
Yes.
you have to just have enough,
Yeah.
and share.
Yeah.
So it's really important.
Such a powerful thing. I think like in this world, more can learn from that. But thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Such a beautiful conversation. I hope it inspires people to get into their own daily practice and, start to quiet down and go within a little bit because it's super powerful.
Yeah, just quieting down.
Yeah.
Slowing down.
Absolutely.
Prayer. So underrated. Yeah.
Yeah. And I did a podcast a couple weeks ago, and it was like a fourth pillar of growth is just spiritual practice and praying to a higher power and trusting that's what's meant for you and what's protecting you is leading.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll say on that, because it's important, is, we get stuck in the ego. So when you pray, whether or not you believe in a God or a higher, like whatever you believe in, you're just you're admitting my ego is limiting.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna tap into something beyond
There's
my
something
ego.
bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a humbling
So
thing.
humbling. That's so true. It really gets you out of your ego.
Yeah. Like, I can't figure this out. I can't solve this problem.
Yes.
I can't find my way out. I need help. Through that humility comes a lot of grace.
So beautiful. Oh, I love that. Thank you. Good luck, baby.
Yes.
Next time we see you, you're going to have a little one. When are you due?
June 4th.
Oh my gosh, so soon.
2 weeks, 2.5 weeks.
Oh, well, thank you, Sarah, so much for being here. Appreciate you.